Hi, I'm Nora Young. Welcome to our special summer series, The Spark Guide to Life, Navigating Our Connected World. It's a collection of some of our favorite stories from this past season, grouped together by a different theme each week, from big picture perspectives to tips to get through the day-to-day. This time, how our relationship with artificial intelligence is evolving. Sure, you love your technology, but could you, actually love your technology?
The kinds of connections people form with robot companions are very intense and are very genuine.
And maybe we all sometimes dream about having a robot around the house doing the chores, but what would it really be like to have an ultra-realistic artificial human staring at you across the kitchen table?
Creating some imitation of ourselves will in part entail understanding what we ourselves are.
A special feature interview with celebrated novelist Ian McEwan on his new book, Machines Like Me. First up, though, why is that inanimate hunk of tech female on Spark? For the first part of the show, we're going to talk about conversational agents. Computers are way better than they used to be at understanding what people say, thanks to improvements in what's called natural language processing. And that means all of a sudden you can just talk to the computers around you. Maybe that's asking your phone a question or talking to the smart speaker in your home. And that is where we're going to start.
Hey Siri, can you tell me when the sun will set tonight?
No, it will be dark.
Humans have this pretty amazing ability to imagine that the things in the world around us have emotions and inner thoughts just like us. Put googly eyes on a rock and it's your new pet. Even before our computers could talk, we probably imagined a personality for them. But now many of them have their own voices and they've been given a bit of a simulated personality. They'll even tell jokes. Spark producer Josh Fleer visited an office nearby where they use an Alexa smart speaker, so he went by to try it out.
Hi!
Oh,
Welcome.
thank you. Hey Natasha, who are you?
I'm Natasha, your wife.
And what are we doing here?
Talking to Alexa.
So, do you guys use it just for music?
Mostly, yeah.
It's like a fancy speaker. Mm-hmm. I think you can ask it a question and it'll be like, Alexa, what is the weather today?
Right now in Toronto, it's 20 degrees Celsius with cloudy skies. Today's forecast has lots of clouds and thunderstorms, with a high of 21 degrees and a low of 18 degrees.
Alexa, do you have any friends?
Lots of people talk to me. I try to be friendly with all of them.
Alexa, do you like me?
Sure. I'm always happy to make friends.
Sweet.
Artificially Intelligent Virtual Assistants, or AIVA, is a name for assistants that are smart.
That's Heather Woods.
So the ones that I've been studying recently are Siri and Alexa, those assistants who are programmed to help us with daily tasks, but they do so leaning on the capacities of artificial intelligence.
Heather is an assistant professor of rhetoric and technology in the Department of Communication Studies at Kansas State University.
I study how humans use language to make sense of technological change, and what I wanted to figure out was why people seem to have a relationship with their devices, or why the language that they use to communicate with their devices indicated something beyond a relationship between a human and a device or a robot or something else. So I wanted to figure out how we made sense of that new technology and whether or not it meant we created new language for that technology or if we relied on older language.
That language Heather talks about includes the way we treat these assistants as having a gender, and usually that gender is female.
So my most recent publication indicates that Siri and Alexa perform a persona or a personality, linking them to traditional concepts of gendered labor.
While it might seem strange to have a voice that has no personality traits like gender, there are consequences to that choice.
And ultimately, this persona could equip people to become more comfortable with having surveillance devices in intimate spaces like the home. So ultimately, users of Siri and Alexa, myself included, need to balance the many conveniences they offer with larger concerns about surveillance.
Alexa, weird joke.
How old are you?
In human years, I'm 3, and in dog and cat years, I'm 28. I think AI years are marked by nanoseconds, so that makes me like a skrillion.
Alexa, what do you look like?
I look like lots of ones and zeros.
And so in the paper you wrote, you looked at how Siri and Alexa conveyed some sort of stereotypical female traits and how users kind of saw that in them. So how did they convey some of those sort of female traits, or what we think of as stereotypical female traits?
Sure. So I talk about digital domesticity, which is a way of talking about domesticity that is in the technological sphere, or the technological realm. So the idea was that Siri and Alexa and the way that people use language to make sense of them were related to or associated with stereotypical feminine traits. So mothering, caretaking, even providing sexual labor. So in the STSS Tumblr, a lot of people talked about having a sexual relationship with Siri. And I'm sure that some of them were in jest. It's funny to say something to a device that is maybe sexual, but it was frequent and repeated. And so over and over again, people would say, Siri, I love you, or Siri, will you marry me? Or even requests for sexual acts. And it happened with such frequency, as I write in the paper, that those folks who programmed the responses for Siri had to take into account these conversations. And so one of the things that if you ask Siri, what are you wearing? Or do you love me? She will sort of defer, or she'll say, I'm a device. I don't have to wear anything. Can I get back to work now?
All right. Can you give me any other examples?
Absolutely. So there are reviews of people who say, I think in jest, but I think it has some, reality to it, that Alexa performs enough of the sort of labor in the home and administrative labor that it sort of means that they don't need a wife, or that they can have a relationship with this device. So one reviewer said, Alexa means I don't need to engage with human women because she does what I need to do, and with less complaining. Another reviewer said, I'm in techno-lust with Siri. So again, we're talking about doing feminine labor, doing parenting labor, but also sort of sexual labor, or labor that has to do with building relationships.
Mm-hmm. I mean, presumably both men and women, heterosexual and not, were interacting with these AI VAs. Did you see this sort of stereotypical relationships kind of across the board, or did this seem to be sort of about a male-female dynamic?
So many of the textual fragments or objects of analysis weren't associated with somebody with a particular gender or orientation, so I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is that it seemed like these personas were organized, or they were created in such a way as to rely upon stereotypical relationships between a particular type of feminine person and a presumed heterosexual male. That is certainly not true in every case. However, what the research shows is that the relationships that people have were constructed around these gendered stereotypes.
One thing that bothers people about these virtual assistants is the sense that they're always listening to us, that they are, or that they could be, a form of surveillance. How does giving them female personas make us more accepting of them?
Yes. Well, it might make these devices, which are significant in their technological capacities, more comfortable for users. thinking about the home as an intimate space, as a place where you do the personal parts of your life, it's sort of a challenge to get people to elect to have a device that records all the time in their homes. And so perhaps one solution is to help make sense of these devices for the conveniences that they offer, and to provide a persona that's gendered, that feels comfortable, that feels normal or natural or fluid. So again, one way that we make sense of new technology is by using old language. And so drawing on language or communication that we already have, gendered stereotypes, etc., may put people's minds at ease and make them feel as if not only are they getting, searches on the internet or someone to tell them what the weather is going to be like tomorrow, but maybe care labor, maybe a relationship, maybe feelings of sexual attraction. All of those things combined might ease consumers' concerns about surveillance.
Mm-hmm. And how does that serve the tech company's interest beyond just getting us to buy the device?
It's important to note that each company has different policies and procedures for what they do with your personal information. And so I'd strongly recommend people who are interested in these devices read through their privacy policies and their terms of service, etc., oftentimes as they change. But what we do know is that for these devices to work, something must be recorded. And generally what happens is a user says the trigger word, the device records, and sends the information enclosed in the question or command to the home company via the cloud. However, there have been some reports that companies make this information available to others, either for quality control or to monetize abstract information in the form of ads. To do the work that a device needs to do, it has to have context, including your location, your prior queries, basic preferences. All of those things may be unsettling to some users. So the ultimate question is, are we comfortable with the convenience and perhaps perpetuating troublesome stereotypes in exchange for having always-on devices in our homes?
Mm-hmm. I'm just out of curiosity, do you talk to your personal assistant in a, not necessarily gendered way, but in a way beyond simple commands? Like, do you feel the pull to sort of anthropomorphize the devices and technologies in your own life?
I do. If you'll notice, I've anthropomorphized with a gender for Siri and Alexa. I designate them she. That is something that I don't always feel comfortable about, but it feels natural, so I sort of go with it. I also work really hard to be kind to my devices. My spouse noticed the other day that I say, Alexa, what's the weather going to be like? And then I say, thank you. Or I say, Siri, could you please? And those are not necessary to execute commands, but it seems important to me to be kind.
Heather, thanks so much for talking to us.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Heather Woods is Assistant Professor of Rhetoric and Technology in the Department of Communication Studies at Kansas State University. We first spoke to her last September. I'm Nora Young, and you're listening to the Spark Guide to Life. Today we're exploring our evolving relationship with artificial intelligence.